The doctor's hands were trembling. I watched her eyes, not the ultrasound screen where my baby's heartbeat flickered in steady black and white. No, she was staring at the paperwork at my husband's name printed neatly at the top of the page. Then, without warning, she turned off the monitor. Just like that, mid-exam. As if someone had pulled the plug on my entire life. "Mrs. Hartman," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I need to speak with you privately. Now." I followed her to the office, my heart hammering in my chest. Every worst-case scenario flashed through my mind. Something must be wrong with the baby, I thought. But her hands were shaking, not from concern for the little life growing inside me, but for something else. Something bigger. She closed the door, locked it, and gestured for me to sit. My mind spun. Then she said the words that shattered everything I believed about my life, my marriage, my future. "You need to leave your husband today." Dr. Sophia Langley said, "Hire a divorce lawyer first. And you need to see the truth before he ever has a chance to manipulate you again." I laughed. Really, truly laughed. "What? Why?" "Because what I'm about to show you will change everything you think you know about your marriage," she said, her voice shaking. I didn't understand. Not yet, but I was about to. My name is Olivia Hartman. I'm 32, marketing director at a boutique firm in Connecticut. I come from what people politely call old money. My grandmother, Beatrice Hartman, passed away 5 years ago and left me her estate, about $2.3 million in a trust in the Wilson family mansion, home to 5 generations of Hartman women. I never flaunted it. I worked hard for my own career, drove a 10-year-old Subaru, and bought my coffee at the same place every morning. The inheritance was security, not identity. But it made me a target, though I didn't know it at the time. I met Ethan Caldwell 4 years ago at our family's annual charity gala. I was standing at the bar, trying to escape a man who asked about my net worth within 3 minutes of meeting me. Subtle, right? Then Ethan appeared. Tall, dark-haired, easy smile. He asked what I was drinking, joked about the dreadful jazz band, and, most importantly, he didn't mention money once. He claimed he was a financial advisor who'd gotten a last-minute invitation from a colleague. He said he had no idea who the Hartmans were. Looking back, that should have been my first warning sign. But I was tired of obvious gold diggers. Ethan asked about my favorite books instead of my bank account. That was new. That was different. And for a woman like me, tired of people caring more about my money than me, that was enough. We dated for a year. Ethan was attentive, remembered small details, insisted on paying for dinners even though I could have bought the restaurant myself. My mother, Margaret Hartman, saw through him immediately. "That man's smile doesn't reach his eyes," she said after their first meeting. "Something is wrong with him." I called her paranoid, overprotective, jealous even. We fought constantly. Eventually, we stopped talking about it. 2 years of near silence between me and the woman who raised me, birthday texts only, because I chose to believe my husband over my own mother. Spoiler alert, Mom was right. And she had been waiting for me to see it. We married after a year of dating, a beautiful ceremony at my grandmother's estate. Ethan cried during his vows, tears streaming down his face as he promised to love and protect me forever. At the time, I thought those were tears of joy. Looking back, they were probably tears of relief. After 2 years of trying naturally for a baby, we saw a fertility specialist. The diagnosis hit like a truck. Ethan had severe male factor infertility. His sperm count was almost non-existent. Natural conception was essentially impossible. I comforted him, told him we'd figure it out together. That's what marriage is about, right? Supporting each other. Little did I know, his tears were not from grief, they were him recalculating his plan. We opted for IVF with ICSI, where a single sperm is injected directly into an egg. Ethan handled the clinic research, insisted on the perfect facility, and guided the paperwork. At the time, I thought it was supportive. Later, I realized it was calculated. The first cycle failed. I couldn't leave my bed for 3 days. Ethan whispered encouragement, held me close. But I didn't know the truth. He was recalculating, adjusting, manipulating. 7 months ago, the second cycle worked. 2 pink lines changed everything. I cried happy tears. Ethan smiled, held me, discussed nursery colors, baby names, the future. It seemed perfect. Then the small things began, small but noticeable. Ethan started keeping his phone face down on surfaces, adding passwords I didn't know. Late-night calls he claimed were work emergencies at 11 p.m. on Saturdays. Late-night office visits, 40 minutes from home. Hotel bills I didn't recognize. Smooth, practiced explanations. Subtle shifts in his warmth. When I pushed, he called me paranoid, hormonal, needy, difficult. I apologized because he was good. Too good. The trust slowly shifted. He asked to be added to my trust, for the baby's sake. Suggested selling my grandmother's estate for investment. I refused. He became distant, cold, silent. He barely touched me, blamed my changing. Body. Then came my 4-month appointment with Dr. Langley. My usual OBA was away. I went alone. Ethan had a client meeting he couldn't miss. Standard checkup, normal ultrasound. But when Sophia opened my file, her face drained of color. Her hands trembled. She turned off the monitor. I thought something had happened to my baby. But no. She looked at my husband's name, again and again, before whispering, Olivia. You need to see this before he knows. I've shown it to you. 3 weeks ago, her sister Nina Langley had confided in Sophia. She worked at our IVF clinic. She told Sophia everything Ethan had orchestrated, bribing clinic staff, switching sperm samples, covering up payments. Donor sperm had been used to conceive my child without my knowledge. He'd spent $50,000 on a scheme to frame me for infidelity, manipulate the pregnancy, and secure my inheritance. My world tilted on its axis. Every late night, every secret phone call, every change in behavior suddenly made sense. Ethan had been playing a long game. And I had been the unwitting pawn. As I sat in that office, staring at the folder of documents Sophia laid before me, I realized something terrifying and liberating. He thought I was weak, that I would crumble, that I would hand over everything without a fight. He was about to find out just how wrong he was. I left Dr. Langley's office with my hands steady on the wheel, though my heart raced like a drum in my chest. The city streets blurred past as I drove home. Each traffic light a reminder that the man I'd loved, the man I had shared my life with for 3 years, was a stranger hiding in plain sight. My husband, Ethan Caldwell, had built an empire of lies around me, and now, I had the evidence to expose every last detail. But first, I had to plan. He was clever, calculated. He had already tried to manipulate every step of our IVF journey. Every interaction at the clinic, every detail of our lives, all to frame me and secure my inheritance. And I couldn't afford a single misstep. The first call I made was to my mother, Margaret Hartman. 2 years of silence, of choosing Ethan over her warnings, weighed heavily on me. My phone rang twice before she answered. Her voice, cautious, yet full of hope, made my throat tighten. Olivia? Mom, you were right about everything, I whispered, barely able to get the words out without breaking down. I need your help. There was a pause. Then she said softly, What do you need, sweetheart? Her words were simple, but they carried more weight than any lecture I had ever received. The woman who had warned me, argued with me, and been dismissed for 2 years was still the first person I turned to in my moment of truth. That was real love. Within 24 hours, she connected me to Sandra Kowalski, a top divorce attorney in Connecticut with a reputation for dismantling complex cases involving fraud and inheritance disputes. Sandra was the kind of lawyer who could hide her sharp teeth behind a grandmotherly smile. Silver hair, reading glasses perched on the tip of her nose, and a voice that could calm a storm while cutting through nonsense like a scalpel. The first meeting with Sandra was surreal. I laid out the documents Dr. Langley had given me, clinic records, payment receipts, emails between Ethan and the embryologist, statements from Nina Langley, and even Derek Sykes' contract as the sperm donor. Sandra examined everything methodically, her eyes scanning every line, her fingers tracing the edges of the papers like they were a map. "Olivia," she said finally, looking up from the documents, "your husband is facing fraud, conspiracy, and embezzlement charges. Not only that, but the prenup's infidelity clause works in your favor, because he's the one who cheated and manipulated the entire IVF process. This is a rare and extremely strong position for you legally. If you act now, we can secure both your financial and personal safety." I nodded, my mind already racing through what needed to happen next. But I knew I couldn't rely solely on lawyers. Legal action was one thing. Catching Ethan red-handed, ensuring there was no chance for him to wiggle free, required precision, timing, and evidence. That night, I couldn't sleep. The apartment felt suffocating. Every memory of Ethan's touch, his carefully rehearsed smiles, and the whispered promises during late nights on our couch now felt tainted. The betrayal ran deeper than I had imagined. The man I loved had spent years manipulating, lying, and planning to ruin me. I needed eyes on him. Someone who could track his movements, collect evidence, and ensure that every transaction, every conversation, every deceitful action was recorded. I found Rosalind Weaver, a private investigator with 15 years on the force before she went private. No nonsense, sharp eyes, and a reputation for solving impossible cases. When I met her at her small, cluttered office, I spilled everything. Documents, receipts, the whole story. She listened without interrupting, taking notes with meticulous care. "Your husband made a lot of mistakes," Rosalind said finally, leaning back in her chair. "Arrogant men always do. Give me 2 weeks." 10 days later, she delivered the results. Ethan Caldwell's gambling debts totaled $180,000. He owed money to online poker sites, underground poker rings, and private lenders who didn't tolerate late payments. The embezzlement? Confirmed. $53,000 missing from client accounts at his firm, siphoned carefully over 18 months through small, unnoticeable transactions. His firm had no idea yet. And then there was the affair. 8 months, his assistant, hotel rooms, romantic dinners, and weekend getaways disguised as business trips. Rosalind had photos, texts, and credit card receipts. The evidence was overwhelming. But what shook me most was the pattern. Ethan wasn't just greedy, he was serial. 5 years ago, he had targeted Carolyn Ashford, a woman with family wealth. In Boston, she had ended the relationship after discovering irregularities in a joint account. Carolyn was now ready to testify. I met with Nina Langley in a quiet coffee shop an hour from town. She looked pale and haunted, the guilt of months weighing heavily on her. Tears streamed down her face as I sat across from her. "I'm so sorry," she sobbed. I didn't know what else to do." He was so convincing. "I thought maybe I was helping protect you from a genetic issue. I stopped her gently. "Nina, you're not the villain. He is. And now you have chance to do the right thing. Will you testify officially on the record?" She nodded without hesitation. "Yes, whatever you need. I'll tell the truth under oath." The embryologist, when confronted, also agreed to cooperate. His conscience couldn't outweigh the risk of losing his license and going to prison. He would provide the statements and evidence necessary to bring Ethan down. Next, I had to protect myself and my baby. Ethan had installed security cameras around our house, claiming it was for protection. I assumed now that they were a form of surveillance, tracking my movements, my expressions, waiting for any sign of suspicion. I had to remain calm, careful, calculated. Returning home, I greeted Ethan with a practiced smile. The appointment went well. The baby is perfect. My voice was steady. My hands rested on my belly. I handed him the ultrasound photo, making sure my expression betrayed nothing. He smiled, satisfied. He believed his plan was still intact. He had no idea I had already started to flip the board. For the next few days, I meticulously documented everything. Every interaction with Ethan, every phone call, every suspicious behavior. Rosalind followed him, capturing video, photographs, and receipts. Sandra prepared the legal groundwork to ensure that, when the time came, Ethan could not escape justice. And then came the party. I suggested a small baby moon celebration at my grandmother's estate. It was perfect. All the guests, unaware of Ethan's schemes, would serve as witnesses. His parents, colleagues, friends, every interaction a stage for the final act. He eagerly took part in planning, showing off his devoted father-to-be. Performance. Little did he know, the celebration would be the stage where his long carefully constructed deception would unravel. On the morning of the party, I watched Ethan through the door as he practiced his expressions in the mirror. Champagne glass in hand, smile perfected, tears rehearsed for the cameras, ready to charm everyone. My pulse quickened. He believed he was in control. I had spent weeks planning every detail. Police officers stationed in the guest house, my lawyer. Ready near the bar, Derek Sykes prepared to testify. Folders of evidence neatly arranged. The trap had been set. And this time, he would have no escape. The sun shone over the Wilson estate as white tents adorned the back lawn, flowers in full bloom, string quartet playing softly. Guests arrived, oblivious to the drama about to unfold. Ethan moved through the crowd, charming, confident, every handshake, every laugh a mask. I watched from a distance, heart pounding. The calm I felt surprised even me. He thought he had manipulated me completely, but the game had shifted. Now I held all the power. The first crack in his armor came as I approached the podium. Microphone in hand, folder of evidence tucked beneath my arm. I stepped into the sunlight. Ethan's eyes flicked to me, the practiced smile faltering. The guests turned toward me, curious. I cleared my throat. Thank you all for coming today. I began, my voice steady and carrying across the lawn. We're here to celebrate family, the arrival of a new life, and, most importantly, truth. Ethan's hand found my waist instinctively, trying to guide me into a joint performance. I stepped back, keeping the folder hidden, the surprise intact. You see, I continued, my husband has gone to extraordinary lengths to manipulate and deceive everyone around him, including me. But today we will uncover the full truth. Gasps rippled through the crowd as I let the words hang. In the air, Ethan's smile had vanished. The first seeds of panic had taken root. The sunlight streamed across the Wilson estate lawn, glinting off the crystal glasses and pastel flower arrangements. Guests chatted politely, unaware that beneath the surface, tension simmered like a storm about to break. I felt it in my chest. Mix of adrenaline and cold, calculated calm. Every move I made, every word I spoke, had to be perfect. Ethan's web of lies had been intricate, but my network of truth was now stronger, ready to unravel everything he had spent years constructing. As the music played softly in the background, I took a deep breath, my hand resting on my belly. The baby's kick made me wince slightly, a reminder of what was at stake. I had to win not just for myself but for the life growing inside me. From the corner of my eye, I watched Ethan glide through the crowd, charming everyone with his rehearsed smile, laughing at jokes that weren't funny, making subtle boasts about our supposed perfect marriage and the miracle of our upcoming child. He didn't notice Rosalind's discreet camera, capturing his every gesture, nor Sandra moving silently in the crowd, ready to interject if needed. I approached the podium that had been set up near the flower-adorned arch where we were meant to take pictures. My heart thumped, yet I forced my expression into serenity. I flipped open the folder in my hands, concealing the mountain of evidence neatly stacked inside. Ladies and gentlemen, I began, my voice carrying across the lawn. Thank you for gathering today. I know this was supposed to be a joyful celebration of new life, but there is something much more urgent than joy that needs addressing. Truth. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. I ignored them. My eyes locked on Ethan and I saw a flicker of unease cross his face. He tried to mask it immediately, smiling, but the tension was there. Ethan stepped closer. Olivia, what are you? Please. Just listen, I interrupted firmly. I have discovered, through careful investigation, That the man I trusted with my life and the life of my unborn child has been deceiving me, manipulating me, and committing fraud for years. The gasps from the crowd were immediate. His mother, standing near the refreshment table, whispered something to his father, both of them pale. Guests exchanged confused looks, some whispering hurriedly into their phones. Ethan's hand twitched toward mine, an instinctive attempt to control the narrative. I stepped back, keeping the folder pressed against my body. I have proof, I continued, pulling out a series of documents and sliding them onto the podium one by one. Receipts, emails, photos, evidence of every transaction, every hidden debt, every secret meeting Ethan had conducted while pretending to be devoted. The first document was a credit card statement showing his gambling at underground poker rings. The crowd gasped again, and Ethan's composure slipped slightly. I continued, presenting the embezzlement records and bank transfers that Rosalind had traced meticulously. And, I said, holding up a photo of Ethan with his assistant in a hotel room, this is the woman he had an affair with while claiming to plan our family together. The betrayal is complete. Ethan opened his mouth, trying to form a protest, but I raised a hand. No explanations, no lies. Everything here is documented and confirmed. Sandra stepped forward, holding a tablet with statements from Nina Langley and the embryologist, both confirming Ethan's manipulation of the IVF process. The crowd stared, mouths agape. Ethan's father stepped forward, voice trembling. Ethan? Is this true? His son's eyes darted around, realizing his web of control had collapsed. He tried to lie, to charm, to regain composure, but his voice faltered. It's complicated. Olivia, doesn't she misunderstands? Complicated? I interrupted sharply. You manipulated the clinic, coerced medical staff, hid affairs, siphoned money, and tried to ruin my life. That is not complicated. That is criminal. The crowd grew restless, whispers spreading like wildfire. People who had admired Ethan's charisma now looked at him with suspicion, disbelief, and shock. At that moment, Derek Sykes stepped forward. The man who had been silenced by Ethan's threats now spoke publicly. I was manipulated as well. Ethan tried to use me as part of his scheme. I am here to tell the truth. The final blow came when Carolyn Ashford, the Boston woman Ethan had tried to ruin years ago, arrived at the gates. She had flown in quietly, accompanied by her lawyer. She gave a statement confirming Ethan's pattern of deceit, fraud, and emotional manipulation over multiple relationships. Ethan's mask shattered completely. He staggered back, unable to respond, the weight of years of lies crushing him in front of everyone he had tried to impress. I felt a surge of emotion, but I held it back. This was not the moment to cry. This was the moment to stand firm, to reclaim everything he had tried to take. I exhaled slowly, allowing the tension to release in a controlled rhythm. Then came the final step: security. Two discreet officers who had been stationed near the perimeter approached Ethan, informing him that he was being taken in for questioning regarding the fraud and manipulation of the IVF clinic. Panic set in fully. No! He shouted, but his voice sounded weak, hollow. He looked at me, his expression finally showing the fear he had never allowed himself to feel. I took a deep breath and stepped closer. Ethan, this was your choice. You can either accept the consequences or continue lying. The truth will always find its way. The officers gently but firmly led him away, his protests fading into murmurs, his carefully constructed world crumbling around him. The crowd, once shocked, now turned to me. My mother, Margaret, approached, tears in her eyes. She embraced me tightly. You did it, Olivia. You were brave, and you were strong. I smiled through the tears. We did it, I whispered. The sense of victory was overwhelming but tempered by the years of deception I had endured. As the party resumed, now free from Ethan's shadow, I allowed myself a moment of genuine joy. Guests celebrated, friends congratulated, and I finally felt safe. My unborn child was secure, my mother by my side, and the truth restored. Later, Alone in the nursery I had begun preparing, I held my belly and whispered softly, "We're going to be okay, little one. No more lies, no more fear, just love." For the first time in years, I felt a calm certainty. The nightmare was over. Ethan Caldwell was gone, and the life he had tried to manipulate had finally become mine again. I knew there would still be challenges ahead, legal battles, emotional recovery, and the final dismantling of his empire, but for now, I allowed myself to breathe. And in that quiet moment, I understood something essential. Survival was not just about enduring, but about reclaiming, standing tall, and refusing to be silenced. The next chapter of my life was just beginning. And this time, I would write it with courage, honesty, and love. The morning sunlight streamed through the French windows of our family home, painting golden stripes across the hardwood floor. I could hear birds chirping outside, the soft rustle of leaves, and the distant hum of a lawnmower somewhere down the street. For the first time in months, I felt a sense of calm, but only on the surface. Underneath, every nerve was alive with the anticipation of what today would bring. Grant Mercer had no idea. He thought he'd spent the last year outmaneuvering me, outsmarting everyone. He believed he had built the perfect plan, the perfect trap, the perfect illusion of control. But he didn't realize that while he was weaving his web of lies, I had been gathering the threads to unravel him completely. I dressed carefully, in a light gray dress that skimmed my knees. Subtle elegance, nothing flashy, just the kind of outfit that made people underestimate you until it was too late. My hair was pinned back loosely, and I didn't wear a single piece of jewelry, not because I couldn't, but because I wanted to look unassuming. Grant had to feel comfortable, confident, and completely unaware of what was coming. The phone rang. It was Sandra Kowalski, my divorce lawyer, confirming the final details. She reminded me that the police officers would be positioned discreetly, and that Molly Brennan and Derek Sykes would be present, ready to testify. Every piece of evidence had been double-checked, every angle considered. We were ready by noon. The estate was buzzing with the kind of energy reserved for celebrations. White tents had been set up on the back lawn, flower arrangements bursting with spring colors. The tablecloths were crisp, and the champagne chilled. Grant had thought this was just another baby shower or a casual pre-baby gathering. He had no idea that everyone here was about to witness the collapse of his carefully constructed facade. Guests arrived in their Sunday best. Friends, family, colleagues, all unaware of the drama about to unfold. Grant's parents were there, smiling, oblivious to the web of deceit their son had spun. His mother fawned over him, touching his arm gently, praising what a devoted father he would be. His father nodded, shaking hands and laughing at every joke, proud of the son who was about to be unmasked. I moved through the guests with a serene smile, greeting people politely, handing out small gestures of affection, all while keeping one eye on Grant. He was in his element, charming everyone, moving from conversation to conversation, a picture-perfect husband-to-be. The moment came just after 3 p.m. Grant had begun talking loudly about celebrating fatherhood with a DNA test, rehearsing the scene he had imagined in his head for months. He gestured toward me, arm around my waist, voice full of excitement. "You know what we should do, honey?" he said, smiling for the cameras. "Let's get one of those DNA kits for the baby. Imagine the nursery reveal proof that daddy and baby are connected forever. Wouldn't that be special?" Several guests murmured in approval. Some clapped lightly. His mother dabbed at her eyes again, touched by what she thought was a beautiful gesture. Grant's pride was palpable. He believed he was about to secure his victory. I waited a moment, letting the tension build. Then I took the microphone from the podium near the fountain and smiled, sweet, calm, entirely in control. "Thank you all for coming today," I said. My voice carried across the lawn. "This gathering is about family, about celebration, about truth." Grant's smile faltered. He looked at me, confused, sensing that something had shifted. But he had no idea what. "I want to share something very important with you," I continued, gesturing toward the guests. 3 months ago, I learned a truth that changed everything I thought I knew about my marriage. I reached under the podium and pulled out a folder, heavy with the weight of evidence. The paper rustled as I held it up for everyone to see. "These are the original records from the IVF clinic we attended," I said. "Original, unaltered documents, showing what really happened." Grant's face went pale. His hand trembled slightly as he raised a glass, trying to maintain composure. "Daphne," he began, voice tight. "This isn't—" I held up a finger, stopping him mid-sentence. "You bribed 2 clinic employees to switch your sperm sample with that of a donor. You paid $30,000 to the nurse, money to the embryologist, and $15,000 to Derek Sykes, a young graduate student, all without my knowledge, all without my consent." Gasps echoed through the crowd. Some women covered their mouths, shocked. Grant's mother gasped audibly, clutching her chest. His father's face drained of color. A champagne glass slipped from Grant's fingers and shattered on the patio stones. I continued, my voice calm but firm. "The plan was simple. Have a successful pregnancy, stage a DNA test after the birth, accuse me of cheating, and use the prenup infidelity clause to claim $500,000, plus additional damages. But the evidence, every email, every payment record, every altered document was preserved. And today, everyone is going to see it." Molly Brennan stepped forward from the edge of the crowd. Her hands shook slightly, but her voice was steady. "I was the nurse who was bribed. I have documentation of everything. I've already provided a formal statement to the authorities." Derek Sykes, the donor, stepped forward next. "I was paid $15,000 for the donation. I didn't know it was part of a scheme to defraud Mrs. Wilson. I have been cooperating fully with the investigation." Grant looked around frantically. His colleagues, his friends, his family, they all stared at him, disbelief etched into their faces. His carefully built image of the devoted husband, the loving father-to-be, was crumbling. I held up more documents. "In addition to bribing the clinic, you embezzled $50,000 from clients at your firm to fund this scheme. You have $180,000 in gambling debts, and you've been having an affair with your assistant for the past 8 months. His mother gasped again, pressing her hand to her mouth. His father looked away, ashamed. Grant opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. I smiled softly. "And let's not forget, this wasn't your first time targeting wealthy women. 5 years ago, in Boston, you attempted the same thing." The woman has come forward, provided statements, ready to testify. 2 police officers emerged from the guest house, walking calmly toward Grant. "Grant Mercer, you are under arrest for fraud, conspiracy, and embezzlement. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you." In a court of law, handcuffs clicked shut. Grant struggled briefly, eyes wide, voice trembling. "Daphne, please, we can work this out. I love you." I looked at him directly, my voice cold and steady. "You're absolutely right, Grant. We just worked it out." He was led away, stunned, defeated, and completely powerless. His parents watched silently, unable to intervene. The crowd was quiet, absorbing the gravity of the moment. I turned to my mother, who had stood by silently, watching me orchestrate everything. She smiled softly, pride shining in her eyes. "You did it," she said. "Your grandmother would be proud." I exhaled deeply for the first time in months. Peace washed over me. My baby, safe in my womb, completely innocent in all of this, would grow up knowing love and security, not deceit. The weeks that followed were a blur of legal proceedings, family support, and quiet reflection. Grant Mercer faced charges on all counts: fraud, conspiracy, embezzlement. His firm froze his access to accounts, and internal investigations confirmed the missing funds. The criminal case moved swiftly, and every witness and piece of evidence I had meticulously gathered contributed to ensuring he could never harm anyone else in this way. My divorce was finalized in record time. The primp worked in my favor, and I retained full control of my inheritance. More importantly, I reclaimed my life, my autonomy, and my peace of mind. When my baby was born 4 months later, healthy, strong, and perfect. I held him close and whispered a promise I would keep forever. No one could take away the love we shared. No one could manipulate or control our lives again. Family, I realized, wasn't about biology. It was about trust, loyalty, and who truly stood by you when the world tried to burn you down. My mother had chosen me. I had chosen my child. That was enough. And in that moment, I finally understood what my grandmother meant when she said, "Wilson, women don't break. We bend, we adapt, we survive. We rise." If this story shocked you, make sure to smash that like button. Comment below your thoughts. What would you have done if you were in Daphne's shoes? Don't forget to subscribe for more gripping, jaw-dropping stories like this. Share this video with friends who love suspense, drama, and incredible real-life twists.